Well, hello, everybody. The Big Picture Manatee. We have been on a slight break for a few weeks after we hit our 50th episode. Woohoo, everybody. Nice job. We all said we had a few other things to focus on. So we are back. Hi, I'm Sherry Courier, um, former county administrator, but private business owner of a consulting business and doing lots of fun work throughout the region. And I'd like to pass it over to Mr. Bellamy.
Hey, welcome back. It's good to see you all. Downtime is never downtime unless you're far, far away. The weather's changing, and obviously we're preparing for the spring/summer. So I'm excited about that. My name is Reggie Bellamy. I'm former county commissioner, proud U.S. veteran, and a proud graduate from Bethune-Cookman University. Go Wildcats! And I am excited because we are preparing for the end of March Madness. Let's go.
I knew he was going to bring basketball. Hey everybody, I'm Misty Servia, also former county commissioner, had the privilege of serving with Reggie and working for Sherry Courier. I'm currently a planning director out at DeSoto County and a private business owner, consultant. And I'm so happy to be back with you guys. I know we took a couple weeks off, but it's great to be together again, and let's talk. What are we talking about today, Sherry?
All right. So, how many everybody has watched the movie Groundhog Day? Because it's like Groundhog Day these days with some topics. Because today we're going to talk about dust control. Might not seem like a really interesting topic to many folks outside of the area, but here in Manatee County, it's a huge issue. And as we were preparing to talk today, we, think back to this is not a new issue. There is a lot going on, especially when Misty and Reggie were commissioners many years ago, and how things were being addressed. So today's very important to talk about what a topic that citizens, again, have brought forward to the commission, and how the citizens have tried to help shape, both following current guidelines and addressing new ones. So that's what we're going to discuss, and we're going to hope that there's a lot of progress moving forward. There were just some decisions made back in, a year ago, back in April of last year, by the prior board about dust control and clear cutting in these big developments. And apparently, over the last 12 months, things haven't gone necessarily that well. And we still have a lot of problems that are impacting citizens, especially out east, but all over. So I don't want to leave anybody out, right? It's all over, impacting their environment, their health, their everyday living. And we want to talk about some of that today on the show.
So yeah, I'm kind of excited about this right here, and I think it gives us the opportunity to do what we started this for, to educate and inform. Dust control is a concern, and one of the things that came to my mind, I've experienced this as a county commissioner, and with me experiencing it, I've experienced the call from the citizen, wanting something to be done about dust, that was taking place in the within the developing in their immediate area. And the communication initially was extended, and there was some frustration, there was some anger, and I challenged myself to go out and see, what the experience. You have dust in individual pools and things like that, and my colleagues may not like that. May not like this, but I don't think I handled it the best that I could, now that I've been educated a little bit more. So I'm excited about having the opportunity to inform the community, and give them an understanding. There are things and regulations that are out there. So I would ask, my planning on call friend to give to give me some understanding, because the staff is kind of looking for some support. The community is looking for some support, and truthfully, the steps and what entities that could potentially support it, and how can we inform them to make sure that they are aware of who they should communicate with to get the support that they're looking for.
Right. Well, so this issue is something that's pretty common in the land development world, and it's something that I have dealt with on the periphery. I never was someone directly involved because it happens when construction starts in the field. So the technical term for that dust is fugitive particulate abatement plan. That's the plan that always required of people to submit with their construction plans that said, hey, we're going to remove vegetation, we're going to, clear the land, and we know that there's going to be some erosion and dust flying around. And so here's our plan for controlling it. So it is part of the construction plan approval that plan is laid out and reviewed by the county and approved. Now, this is after things go to the county commission. So when people are at the county commission at those public hearings, that's early in the process. It's not until you break ground that this actually becomes a concern. And so back when I was a planner, I've been doing this for a while now in Manatee County. We used to require that there could be absolutely no clearing of the land until you got that final site plan and those construction plans approved, because land clearing was termed to be development. But things changed and time flies, but I want to say it was at least 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, where the Swift Mud rules changed. So, and the state Southwest Florida Water Management District, Swift Mud, what had a whole reworking of their process. You may remember that there were some local players involved, and they said, hey, we are going to allow you to get what we call a mass grading plan. So if you have, let's say, 500 acres, you don't have to stage that clearing, clear a little bit here and then construct and then clear a little more. You can get this mass grading plan, show us how you're going to clear the whole site and what's going to happen. And the county said, I remember talking to the county attorney about this, we have no right to not allow people to start clearing their land as soon as they get that Swift Mud approval. So if they get a Swift Mud approval for 500 acres and don't have construction drawing approval yet, we can't stop them from clearing the land. And that was the take in Manatee County. Now, I will tell you, in DeSoto County today, we don't allow that. It still has to be staged, and we work with Swift Mud. So it just goes to show you that there are different opinions and different strategies and visions and different leadership depending on the local government. So everyone is just a little bit different.
Yeah, I think some of the things that you're pointing out that are, coming to light, honestly, we didn't realize, some of the tactics that were probably being instituted all the way back towards, changing Swift Mud rules, because, we're dealing with all of the issues of the community, not just, land development. So, if you've got people of power that are getting into positions, like especially with Swift Mud and other entities, and they're able to make changes that will benefit, the way they operate and maybe their bottom line. But sometimes you don't find these things out about how they impact everyday people until many years later on down the road. And this is definitely one of those examples. So as soon as Swift Mud basically changed their rules, then, as you said, Misty, rules, are changed at the local level to comply. And then who would have thought that all the development was going to, explode and blast itself out, so to speak, in a 2 to 4 year period, which is what happened. And so as a result of that, citizens were impacted gravely. I mean, every day, not just randomly, but, every day for weeks on end, with the inability basically to live and be outside even. And, you know, I mean, you can imagine how frustrating it is for them, because you two would get those calls from people, you know, why aren't you doing something about this? Why aren't you doing something about it? And if you called me like you always did, because, you know, in your role as a policymaker, you're relying on the administrator, right, to make these things happen. So, you know, then the administrator is working with the different departments. And in this case, you know, as it's kind of come to fruition, is that, you know, I'm seeing that there was an awful lot of changes made in the local government structure in the last 4 years that limited control of the qualified staff to basically go out and do their job and to follow the guidelines, because there was instruction coming from either administration or directly from the commission to, you know, look the other way on this one, or go, you know, take care and more force to this one. And you guys know you can't do that. You didn't do that. And so, I mean, we now know that that was happening. We knew that was going on, and, you know, we're here today, right? So what can we do? What can the commission do? And they are, you know, they're attempting to put some new regulations in, and staff are attempting to bring them ideas. But the frustrating part, at least to me, is that it's taken so long. I mean, we're right back to where everything was before, when most of these concerns and complaints have repeated themselves. And so you can imagine how citizens feel, you know, if they've been complaining, and they're right. That's the biggest part, you know, it comes back that there's not much that can be done in a short period of time. And so there's been a few big developments that have ramped this back up, especially the one on Cortez Road and 75th Street. That was like the Seaflower development, where it happened during an environmental and weather events where the wind was just excessively whipping up. And, you know, that really created an issue. So now we're back kind of to the drawing board, and people are pretty upset.
So I like where we are on this, and it's just to inform the community, and this is a serious issue, and just hearing that it's out there. What I did, Misty, is I looked up fugitive particulate abatement plan, and I think, no, and the reason why I looked it up, because I think the citizens should know that that's out there, and that is something that they should start communicating with the county. Or if I was in that position again as a commissioner, I would say talk to code enforcement just to see whether or not, you know, the developers are, you know, aligned with the fugitive particulate abatement plan. Because here's the reality of it. Some of the highlights, you know, you have the health hazards, you have the driving hazards, right? And then what about the monitoring the project itself? And then truthfully, who's responsible for prevention or control? It's not code enforcement. I think that falls back on the developer. And I think the citizen needs to have the right to have a clear understanding on who to communicate with. Is it Swift Mud? Is it DEP, code enforcement? And I think we have a responsibility to align them and extend that information to them, so they can assure that their T's are being crossed and their I's are being dotted. And here's the reason why. As any leader, you always want to, in my mind, I say you always want to reverse the issue. In other words, what if it was you driving and you could not see because of dust? What if it was your pool that was full of particulates or contaminants because of dust? You would want an answer immediately, not eventually. So I think we have taken upon the responsibility of communicating with our community and aligning them with the information so they can have what's needed, so they can communicate with who they should be communicating with.
Yeah, Yeah, good points, Reggie. Because I mean, once that plan is approved, that plan I told you about is approved, it's inspected, right? So we have county staff that goes out and inspects. Are those dust screens up at the property boundary to catch that dirt before it flies into the roadway? Are they watering the dirt during the dry seasons when they haven't yet developed that area or sodded it? There are all kinds of ways to control that. But you have to, I think, have, that, oh, I don't even know what the word is, the fortitude to enforce those rules the same for everyone. And the reason that we have them is to protect the health, safety, welfare. That's what we always come back to. Um, and it's not just new construction jobs either. So I live in the vicinity of a recycling facility where they take trees and different vegetative debris and they mulch it up, right? That business is creating all kinds of particles in the air. Then my community here is suffering and they are having to power wash their homes and their roofs because something's not quite right there. That wasn't a problem under the old ownership and now it is. And I don't know why that's not being addressed. So it's about leadership. I think Sherry said it best, that you got to have the right leadership ready to enforce the great rules that they already have on the books. And, we hear a lot about in this climate, let's roll back these regs. They're hurting the economy, they're hurting this and that. And maybe that is true in some cases, and maybe it isn't. So it is nothing's always true and nothing is never true. So you got to think about those things and how other people are affected. And I think that's what our board can do.
Yeah, with what you're saying about regulations, and I mean, I think it all comes back to what can you do locally, like you're saying. I mean, that's really the only power that we have is what can we do for our citizens locally. And I know that there's been some movement on behalf of the board at a recent meeting about taking some recommendations from staff that are increasing the monitoring, meaning they'll hopefully be out there more. They talked about live feed cameras, which I can't imagine anybody will comply with something like that. They get broken, they get damaged, they get out of service more than they're in service. Who's going to be looking at that? You'll be spending a lot of time. And then really just knowing that there's requirements, like you guys are saying, like the requirements of the developer or the superintendent of the project or whoever the project manager is, like to report on these things. And I mean, what some of the things that the commission is hearing is that it's more trouble to comply than it is to just do what you want to, because even any kind of penalties or time or whatever is more valuable to be able to get the project done and hope that nobody complains. So I think the attention is there. It seems like the board wants to do more, but again, I think this is a subject we've been dealing with for a long time, and the community, the citizens are demanding a change, and they're demanding that it happen swiftly and be consistent, and that's what we'll be watching for.
Well, I think my takeaways is the fugitive particulate abatement plan, and then I'll talk a little bit about the word fortitude, because the word fortitude would challenge all of us. It'll challenge our friends, it'll challenge our foes, and also challenge our frenemies, right? And here's the reality. It seems like there's an opportunity for individuals involved to be on the right side of history. But the true challenge is for you to have that verbal fortitude to assure that you communicate with the right people and to assure that things are being done the right way, because you do not want dust in your pool. Those are my those are my final, and you don't want the health hazard, or you don't want the driving hazard to fall and where it impacts you. So that goes back to the common rule: do unto others as you would want to be done.
Yeah, so good, Reggie. And you know, think about this. People like to always think about how things affect the economy. So here's the economic standpoint on it. You know, all that dust is blowing into the streets, is when it rains, is going into our drainage facilities, is creating little dams, if you will, of sand in our drainage facilities that cost money for the taxpayers to clean out.
Yep.
So the economic impact on all of us, we all pay for that. And the environmental impact, you know, on the wetlands and the habitat and all the things that we have worked so hard in the past to preserve and protect. You know, you get a bunch of dirt that blows into those areas and it changes things. So, good discussion. I'm really hopeful that the board will, maybe come up with some new ideas for taking responsibility and enforcing it and asking their staff to do the same.
Well,
Well,
it sounds like we are definitely supporting more movement towards enforcing more and new, more strict regulations and more responsibility, like you both have said, on behalf of both the developers and on the people that are impacted and the people that are watching, the regulations and the rules. So thanks for tuning in. You can find us at the bigpicturemanatee.com. You can also find us on YouTube. And I would say I'm happy to be back to both of my colleagues here. And we appreciate your time. And we have a lot of new programming ready, and we hope you'll continue to join us. So have a great rest of your day.